Godzilla Minus One won an Oscar. The movie became an international superstar, okay? It's kind of a big deal. I don't know if you've heard of it or not, but it's kind of a big deal. So Godzilla Minus One won the Oscar for Best VFX. And it's got everybody hyped, everybody excited, and everybody talking. And one man was brave enough to ask the question, and I totally forgot who it was, but I'm pretty sure it was Childish Landino over on Twitter. One man was brave enough to ask the question, should Godzilla X Kong the New Empire be next? What's up everybody, D-Man back. Welcome to a brand new video, and today we're going to be doing another Godzilla X Kong the New Empire discussion video. Kind of in line with that last video I posted, I just kind of want to have a generally unscripted, off-the-cuff discussion about this stuff. This was a question, and like I said, I believe it was proposed by Childish Landino over on Twitter. Should Godzilla X Kong the New Empire win the next VFX Oscar? And I think that's something that a lot of us will feel very polarized about. There's going to be a few people who feel very strongly that it should, and then there's going to be a lot of people who absolutely think no. And if you want my opinion right out the gate, I think the answer is pretty clear: no. But not for the reasons you may think. I think there's totally different reasons on why it won't. So I want to clear the air on something that I've seen a lot of people discussing, and that's that Godzilla X Kong the New Empire definitely has some flaws in its VFX. And some people are going to use that as evidence as to why it shouldn't win an Oscar or an award of any sort for VFX. I strongly disagree with that sentiment, especially because Minus One didn't win the Oscar because it has flawless VFX. If you truly think that Godzilla Minus One has flawless VFX, you've Godzilla pilled yourself so hard. It doesn't. I love that movie more than most people. It truly means everything to me, but I'm willing to admit that that movie has flaws, and the VFX are some of those flaws. If you don't believe me, there are a few shots in Godzilla Minus One that have always kind of stuck out to me as being shots that have some error or another. Some of the general shots of Godzilla walking through Ginza, like this one here, I love this shot. Godzilla moves really stiff and awkward in it, and Godzilla moves really stiff. His walk cycle is really awkward throughout the whole movie, so I can't really hold that against the film. That's just the creative choice they've gone with for Godzilla's walk cycle. Also, I've always thought the buildings look a little flat, or I don't know what the issue exactly is. They look a little 2D, they don't quite have the texturing that I might expect, or maybe it's the lighting. Maybe they're just lit too flat and they just kind of look a little weird. Some of them look great, like look at this thing, that looks great. That shot I still think is really great. I love that shot. Like I said, it's one of my faves in the movie. It's just when you analyze trailers like I do, you just kind of notice stuff like that. Well, this shot of the tanks I've always felt looks weird. You can look at the tanks and they just don't look photoreal, do they? They look a little flat, and the gears and the treads, they don't have the depth that you would expect. I think that they're pretty solid models, but they don't have the texturing. Is it that they don't have enough damage? Is it that they don't have enough age to them? I don't entirely know. Is it again just a lighting issue? It very well could be, but I've always thought this shot's a little awkward. But that shot goes by really fast, you know? And that's the thing with VFX shots, is they go by really fast. And I'm bringing this all up for a big point here. Godzilla X Kong the New Empire has a lot of VFX errors as well. Shots that go by and, you know, we see them in the trailers and we're like, wow, it looks a little weird. The lighting on Kong in this shot looks a little weird. Oh, look at this shot of Godzilla. He looks a little awkward, especially this one of his arms, a little clunky. And especially when you see it in motion, it looks weird. Or this one where Godzilla's walking. Now, those are cropped weird. And when they're going to be put into the movie, they won't play out like that. They'll be aspect ratioed totally differently. They'll just have a different presentation. The edit will be different. And that's one of the big things I feel about Minus One, is that you don't notice the VFX errors because the movie is shot and edited in a way that you don't really care. They go by so fast, or in context, they just work. You don't scrutinize as much. And I think it's just a matter of people really like to over scrutinize Hollywood movies, and they're giving Minus One a big pass just because they want to target GXK because they got nothing better to do. Ride your bike, guys. Do something. Be productive. I do think that there are some VFX errors with GXK, like Kong's beard clipping through his chest in some shots is a little awkward, but I don't have the biggest issue with it. I think it's mostly serviceable. In the movie, it'll go by so quickly you're not going to notice that stuff. It's about the presentation of the film itself, not the individual shot. And when you get trailers, we like to overanalyze trailers, overanalyze the shots in trailers, and so we notice things like that you wouldn't notice during the movie itself. For instance, Minus One dropped the most abominable CG shot we've had in a Godzilla movie since throwing way back to to the Millennium era. And that's this shot, which is a phenomenal shot of Godzilla climbing out of the water to attack the Takao. I love this moment, I love this shot, I love this scene, it's so incredible. But look at the edges on Godzilla. It's awkward when you frame by frame it, and there are VFX errors. You can clearly tell the front layer is not the back layer. There's a difference there. It's a weird crop around the edges. I'm not trying to pick apart Minus One and be Mr. Negative. I love Minus One. It definitely deserved its VFX award, but I just want to go to show that there's no such thing as a perfect movie. And so I think over scrutinizing Godzilla X Kong the New Empire is a little ridiculous. Godzilla X Kong the New Empire has shots that look far better than anything in Minus One, especially a lot of the shots of Kong. And overall, from what I have seen in the trailers so far, the lows are not as low as the lows of Minus One, and the highs of Minus One are not as high as the highs of the New Empire. Another factor that I want to mention here is that Godzilla X Kong has way more VFX shots than Minus One, so they have a lot more room and opportunity to have VFX shots that look more noticeably off. The Minus One team had a lot more time to work on their VFX shots than the GXK team does because they're being dispersed over a wider net. And the GXK team has more VFX shots, so there's more opportunity for their shots to look whack. So why did Minus One even win the Oscar? I think there's a lot that played into it. Number one, and most importantly, the low budget that the movie had to work with, about around 10 million US dollars. It was also an independent VFX studio, Shirogami, not an internationally recognized one like ILM or Weta. It's also a Japanese studio, and it's been said since basically the dawn of cinema history that Japanese cinema is about 10 years behind the rest of the world. And while I don't think that's still true, I think Minus One just proved that isn't true anymore, as well as a number of other phenomenal films coming out of Japan. That is an important factor, the fact that it came from outside of the Hollywood studio system. Also, it had an impressively small crew of only 35 people or so, and a very quick turnaround for the time they worked on the film. I think overall the movie won the award for all of those reasons and to celebrate 70 years of Godzilla. Godzilla has been at the forefront of special effects films for 70 years now, and it was about time he got his due. And with such a touching, sentimental, earnest film like Minus One, there's no better Godzilla movie to celebrate at the Oscars than that one. It's also a Japanese Godzilla movie, which gives it a level of authenticity that the American films aren't provided. So in a way, it was celebrating Godzilla's legacy overall, not just Minus One. And the Oscars really likes to celebrate the legacy and accomplishment of an actor or a film or a director or whatever overall when they have such a lasting impression like that. Why would Godzilla X Kong even win the Oscar? Personally, I didn't even think that was on the table until Childish Gambino pitched it, but there is a couple of arguments that you could make here. The sheer number of VFX shots in the movie, it's pretty impressive. The different types of worlds being explored in this movie, we're going to see different biomes and terrains, stuff we've never really seen on film before. Not only bringing the monsters up to like Rio and having them do crazy stuff like whip a building through the air, which we've never seen in a movie before, but also doing things like the Hollow Earth and all the different biomes within. It's all just stuff we've never really seen before. So it's a whole world of opportunity and fantasy, and it's really exciting using film for what film's supposed to be used for, exploring new ideas and bringing things to life that you couldn't even imagine without film. It's just cool stuff. Godzilla X Kong the New Empire is reportedly going to have about 60 minutes worth of monster screen time, which means over half the runtime is going to be spent with the monsters, which is incredible. And so there's a lot of opportunity there to have really impressive VFX work on display. Also, this was a really important point that I believe Childish brought up, is that having a main protagonist who's a CGI character is already pretty revolutionary, although it's not the first time this has been done. Obviously, Avatar, Planet of the Apes, stuff like that, Gollum even. It's not the first time we've had a main protagonist who's a CGI character, but it is a big point for the movie, the fact that both Godzilla and Kong are the leads, and they're also CGI characters. But the thing that really elevates this, as was brought up, is that for the first time, the leads can't speak. It raises the stakes because now the visual storytelling has to be so much stronger. So if Godzilla X Kong the New Empire can really pull off the visual storytelling with animated characters, it could very well be a frontrunner for the Oscar. It differentiates it from something like Planet of the Apes, which has another Planet of the Apes coming out this year, another Empire type movie, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, which actually might win the Oscar because somehow none of those films have yet, even though their VFX are incredible. Have you seen more for the Planet of the Apes? It looks amazing. Planet of the Apes movies, they've got the apes speaking sign language in the first one, and then they start to speak verbally with English over the course of them to the point where in the new one, they're all just talking. It takes them from being these more mythical characters and brings them down to a more human level. Whereas in the MonsterVerse, Kong can sign language a couple words and that's about it. It raises the stakes because now as a visual storyteller, you got to do so much more work to make sure that non-verbally, you're communicating the emotions of the characters and their thoughts and what their desires are, and you got to do all this stuff to build the characters out that you can't use dialogue for, and that's going to be really impressive if they can pull it off. off. If they can pull it off well, I really think that is the argument for why GXK could win the award. Why is Godzilla X Kong not gonna win the Oscar though? Simply put, it's just too close together to Godzilla Minus One. The Oscars does not like to celebrate the same type of movie twice in a row. Godzilla X Kong isn't gonna win the award on those grounds alone. If you look at the franchise's histories for Godzilla and Kong, well, Godzilla's never won an Oscar before, and Kong has won a couple. King Kong 1933 was petitioned to win an Oscar, but the Academy didn't recognize it. Also, Willis O'Brien kind of caused a stink in the awards scene, I believe, according to the commentary and special features in the King Kong Blu-ray, that is. Kind of caused a big stink because he turned down a VFX award because they weren't going to recognize his entire team, they were only going to recognize him, and that kind of disqualified the movie and put it in bad light, and also put Obi in bad light as well. King Kong did go on to win a couple Oscars though. He's won 2 Oscars, once in 1976 and once in 2005, both for VFX I'm talking. Kong has won more Oscars outside of VFX, but I'm only talking about VFX here. Kong Skull Island was also nominated for the VFX Oscar, but it didn't win. Normally, when you look at the Academy overall, they really like to alternate between sci-fi, drama, and fantasy. They don't like to celebrate the same type of film twice in a row. The most recent example of back-to-back winners were the Lord of the Rings trilogy between 2001 and 2003. All 3 of them won awards. I just don't think you're gonna see that happen here. Godzilla X Kong is a massive movie with a massive Hollywood budget, which is just another entry in a cinematic universe in a long line of different cinematic universes that Hollywood's very burnt out on. Godzilla Minus One was basically kind of, in a way, for Hollywood standards anyways, an indie movie that just kind of popped up and bloomed, whereas Godzilla X Kong the New Empire is just another studio movie just being pumped through the old chain, so I don't think there's going to be a need to celebrate it. And also, Godzilla Minus One's VFX, well, I did point out a couple examples that I personally have noticed. The average viewer is not going to notice that because they're not wasting their lives on the trailers the way I am. The VFX in Minus One were just overall more consistent, it seems, than the VFX in the New Empire are going to be based on the trailers alone. So I don't think there's going to be like a rush to celebrate the New Empire because of that. So I don't think the movie's going to win the award, but maybe it could deserve it if it pushes boundaries in the regard of visual storytelling with CG characters non-verbally. That could be a big thing the movie does, although again, you're competing with basically Planet of the Apes directly there, and that's pretty rough. Those movies are phenomenal. I don't know what other awards contenders for VFX are going to come out this year, who knows, but my guess would be GXK is not getting one. That being said, if they push the boundaries, maybe it'll be one of those things that we as fans will always be able to look at and go, hey, they did innovate. Kind of in a way, Kong Skull Island did the same, innovating with the use of water and real locations integrated with CG characters. It was a big thing the team working on Kong Skull Island was pushing for, the integration of water into the scenes and also integrating CG characters into real locations that they shot on film. And then you see that evolves into things like Avatar: The Way of Water, which obviously pushes that to a whole new level. And then you look at The Creator, which took that on-location filming VFX integration to get itself an Oscar nom. I don't know, maybe GXK will have some value to the VFX community overall, but I don't think it'll get an award. But what do you think? Would you want it to get an award? Where do you stand on the VFX for the New Empire overall based on what you've seen in the trailers? Comment down below and let me know. Thank you guys all for watching. I want to give a huge thank you to my patrons over on Patreon. If you want to support the Patreon, you can use the link in the description below. Supporting the Patreon is the most direct way to support this channel and make sure that I can continue to make videos like this for you guys. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I will see you guys next time for the next one. D-Man out.